Due to the COVID-19 pandemic and shutdowns around the state of California, Yosemite National Park has been closed for the better part of 10 weeks. A few days ago, they announced that they were opening again on June 11th with limited vehicles being allowed entry. I've been going to Yosemite with my dad for my entire life, so we were online right when the registrations became available and got a pass to visit the park the first day it was reopened. This video shows our experience, and it was one of the most surreal days I've had in California, with limited crowds allowing us to feel like we were almost alone in the popular park. This video is a little slower than my normal videos as I wanted to just highlight the sights and sounds we experienced while we were there. I will also add some information to the end of this video if you want to visit the park during this transitional period as well. Let's jump into it. Alright, so I'm here with my dad. We spent the night in Oakhurst last night, and Yosemite National Park opens for the first time in 2 months after the COVID pandemic today. We got our vehicle pass. We're going to head into the park and check it out. We set out from Oakhurst at 7 a.m. and we didn't have much of a plan. We just wanted to go into the park and see what we could explore. Made it to the entry station, got our masks, and we're just waiting in line to go in. I think there's probably a lot of people that didn't realize that there's a permit, so it's taking a little bit longer than normal, but there's only about 5 or 6 cars ahead of us. We were hoping to go to the Mariposa Grove first, but due to the reopening, none of the shuttles are currently running, so we decided to skip it and we went into Yosemite Valley. Even though I've been to the park over a dozen times, I never get tired of driving through the tunnel and seeing the view that greets you. We made it to Yosemite, first stop Tunnel View. It's about 9:30 a.m. right now. There was only a few people there with us at Tunnel View, and we soaked in the views and then headed down into the valley. So that's Bridal Veil Fall right there. It is actually closed, not due to COVID. It's just closed because they're working on the trail. You can't hike up to it, but you can see it pretty good. Right in the beginning of your drive through the valley, you get one of my favorite views of El Capitan. We took a few pictures and then continued driving all the way to Sentinel Beach. There's basically no one here with us. It's quiet, it's peaceful, it's so incredible. Just listen to the sound of Yosemite right now without a lot of people. After hanging out at Sentinel Beach, we headed on to our next spot, which was Swinging Bridge, one of the best places for a reflection photo of Yosemite Falls. Check it out, it is 10:30 right now, and there's no one on the Swinging Bridge with me other than my dad. I never thought I would be able to see Yosemite like this. From Swinging Bridge, we continue our drive to another popular photo spot for Yosemite Falls. This is the incredibly popular parking area that looks out at Yosemite Falls. Normally on a summer, this would be packed and people would be trying to find a spot and not being able to get one, but there's literally nobody walking on the boardwalk, nobody parked here. After finishing up our photos, we left this area and headed towards the chapel for one of the coolest experiences I've ever had in Yosemite National Park. The Yosemite Chapel is closed. You cannot go in there. Also, we were just sitting right here and we heard something crack over there. And we saw a bear sprint across the meadow. Since tourists have been gone for the last 2 months, a lot of the animals have come a lot closer to some of the main tourist areas. But be sure to not approach one if you see one. I shot all of this footage on my zoom lens. From there, we headed to the village store to pick up some stuff for lunch. They have barricades set up to control the line, and they give you hand sanitizer when you walk in and open the door for you so you don't have to touch it. They also require you to have masks when you go inside as well. There was no other places to get food that was open when we went, but I believe some of them are opening soon, so check online if you go. Alright, this is our second to last stop in the valley portion of the park before we go to Glacier Point. We're at Lower Yosemite Falls, still tons of parking, no people around in Cook's Meadow. It's definitely more of what we've seen here already. I would never have assumed we'd be able to do all of these things in the Yosemite Valley before lunchtime because parking is usually so difficult in the summer. But with the limited amount of cars that could come in, it was easy to park everywhere, and we were basically able to do a lot of the valley's best spots in only a couple of hours. Even the guidelines of trying to maintain social distancing weren't that hard to obey because there just wasn't that many people in the park. All of the waterfalls in the park were flowing really well, but Yosemite Falls is one of the most impressive to see. Not a lot of people at the falls here either. About a dozen or so people, and no one climbing the rocks because that area is closed. We're leaving Yosemite Falls and we're heading to Valley View to have lunch before heading up to Glacier Point. Honestly, it's been the best day I've ever had in the valley. It's incredible how little amount of people are and how we could park everywhere. We could see everything. We got to see a bear. I mean, how does it get better than that day? We took our time driving out of the valley and pulled off wherever we wanted to take photos. Just me and Pops sitting here by ourselves. So we found a spot to eat lunch. Not too bad. Pops has never been here before. What do you think about this spot?
It's an amazing spot.
I don't know if I've ever ate lunch anywhere more beautiful. Hard to leave this spot, but next stop, Taft or Glacier Point. From Valley View, we made our way out of the Yosemite Valley and made another stop at Tunnel View for some photos before heading up to Glacier Point, which is about a 45-minute drive. Right before you get to Glacier Point, we stopped at Washburn Point as well, as it's fun to get a few different angles of Half Dome, and with the limited amount of people, there was no problems getting parking anywhere. Quick stop at Washburn Point. Not too many people in the parking lot. And now we're heading over to Glacier Point. As you leave Washburn Point, right when you go around the next bend, you'll get an amazing view of Half Dome and the road. There used to be pullouts here, but it looks like they don't allow that anymore. Made it up to Glacier Point. It's about probably 30 or 40 cars in the parking lot. Basically nobody in the second parking lot. We're gonna check out Glacier Point a little bit and then go on a hike. Glacier Point is in my top 3 favorite places in Yosemite, as the views from up here are incredible. I always worry about driving all the way up here though, because during the summer, the parking can be pretty crazy. It was nice to not have to worry about that this time, and we got a lot of the views all to ourselves. We made it to Glacier Point, and we are the only people at Glacier Point right now at 3 o'clock on a Tuesday.
Crazy.
In the middle of the summer. You definitely want to give yourself some time to really experience this spot. It has views in every direction and some of the biggest drops you'll see across the valley to Half Dome and to Yosemite Falls. Alright, so after exploring Glacier Point, we are heading out on the Panorama Trail, and we're going to do the 4-mile hike down to Illilouette Falls. And that is probably our last thing today. 2 miles to Illilouette Falls on Panorama Trail. We picked Illilouette Falls for our last hike of the day as it's one of the waterfalls I'd never seen in the park, and I was really excited to be able to check it off my list. This is our view the entire way. Waterfalls and Half Dome. This is a reverse hike, so we're going downhill all the way to the waterfall, about 1,500 feet, then uphill all the way back. There's our first view of the top of Illilouette Falls down there. Still got a ways to go. I didn't know what to expect when we started this hike, but it's easily one of the most beautiful I've done in the entire park. After coming down this last set of switchbacks, there's the waterfall right on the other side of that. When you finally make it to the waterfall and you get to see the roaring cascade with Half Dome behind it, it's not something you'll forget. Do note that the overlook to get a view of the waterfall is super sketchy though. That waterfall was really cool to see. Now it's 2 miles and 1,000 feet of elevation back to the car. It's a little bit warm, so might take us a little bit longer, but it was worth it for that hike. So my dad asked me if I had ever seen the face in Half Dome, and when I looked closer, it definitely looks like there's a face there. Do you see it? Let me know in the comments. A little bit over halfway back to Glacier Point.
And when you're halfway down, you can get a glimpse of the falls over there already where you're headed, Illilouette. It's pretty sweet.
Yeah, you can see the falls down there. You can also see Half Dome and the face my dad pointed out. Nice work, Pops. We made it back to Glacier Point.
Yeah. I agree with Josh. You cannot hardly imagine a more beautiful hike than this.
Well said. It is amazing. That's it for our time exploring Yosemite on opening day. Hopefully you get to check it out during this transitional time, as it was the coolest trip I've ever had to Yosemite with a limited amount of people. I'm gonna roll some tips from my office, and we'll see you on the next video.